Okay, very good. Thank you, Jenny. So welcome back, everybody. I'll reconvene the meeting for our last learning opportunity for this afternoon. And we have with us Mr. Bernie Berry, and he's an industry participant, past president, Coldwater Lobster Association. And
it looks like he lost connection, so I'm just letting him back in. Sorry about that.
Okay, we'll redo things again. Here comes back in. There he is.
Yep.
You're with us, Mr. Berry?
How you doing?
Good, good. Welcome and thank you for coming in. And as I was saying to the PAC in the water audience, Mr. Berry's industry participant, past president, Coldwater Lobster Association. He'll be presenting to the PAC for half an hour, up to half an hour, and then there'll be a 15-minute Q&A after that. So Mr. Berry, without further ado, thank you for coming in and thank you for your time, and I'll hand the floor over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. And the presentation certainly won't be no 30 minutes long, but anyway, good evening. And first off, I'd like to thank the Plan and Advisory Committee for the opportunity to present to you tonight on the proposed aquaculture development on Chabot Point, and the concerns that myself and hundreds of others, particularly lobster fishermen throughout the municipality and beyond, share. And as Trevor's pointed out, my name is Bernie Berry, and I've been lobster fishing in Southwest NOAA for 40 years, and I'm the past president of the Coldwater Lobster Association, and I'm now a senior advisor. There are approximately 470 lobster licenses within Yarmouth County. This represents approximately half of LFA 34's limit of 979 licenses. All of these licenses represent small businesses and business enterprises that are all worth in excess of $1 million. The cumulative landed value in LFA 34 is in excess of $350 million, with approximately $160 million landed value in Yarmouth County alone. These businesses employ 2 to 4 people each, which totals 1,500 to 2,300 people employed on the boats, which represents the economic backbone of our community. There's lobster buyers, bait dealers, trucking companies, lobster trap builders, fish and supply companies, etc., employing numerous people in the distribution of our product and the logistic support of our industry. This all starts with the product itself. Our lobster is recognized worldwide as a top quality product, harvested sustainably from a pristine water environment. Consumers across the globe demand only the best products for consumption for their families, and our lobster industry must adhere to strict guidelines and third-party scrutiny to maintain our global market share and maintain consumer confidence. The industry is scrutinized by entities such as MSC, the Marine Stewardship Council, the WWF, the World Wildlife Fund, and Monterey Bay Fisheries Trust, among others. Most coastal communities throughout Atlantic Canada depend on the fishery, mainly crab and lobster, as their main employer and their fiscal bedrock. Do these communities need diversification in their economy? Yes. Do they need to attract new industry? Yes. Will any industry do? No. The proposed development of a land-based open flow finfish farm on Chabot Point, or for that matter, anywhere in Yarmouth County, is the wrong type of new industry to introduce to this area. After decades of financial investment by the provincial governments in Nova Scotia to help develop the finfish aquaculture industry, here's where we sit. As of 2019, according to the Nova Scotia Fisheries and Aquaculture Division, there are 193 full-time jobs in the finfish aquaculture industry in Nova Scotia, 27 part-time jobs, and 36 part-time jobs, for a total of 256 jobs that have been developed by this sector over decades and tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars of investment. This is not the answer to diversifying the coastal community's economic well-being. These numbers, in comparison to the commercial fishing industry that has not been government subsidized, is astounding. This clearly illustrates the importance of the fishing industry compared to the aquaculture industry. Besides the lack of economic return, the hazards posed to the lobster industry is substantial. For example, the intake pipes for this proposed operation in Chabot Point will draw large volumes of seawater from the ocean, which will trap lobster larvae that is floating in the water column, and possibly small lobsters that have just settled to the bottom. These larvae and lobsters will be destroyed as they enter the system. The outflow pipes have no regulatory oversight or guidelines or strict guidelines for controlling the end of pipe effluent. There is no end of pipe limits on suspended solids, nitrogen compounds such as ammonia and nitrates, antibiotics, free residual chlorine, dissolved oxygen, etc. As been pointed out, and you've had a presentation by Inka Molesky, as pointed out by Dalhousie biologist Inka Molesky, the proposed salmon farm does not identify a system for capturing nitrogen, phosphorus, or other dissolved chemicals that may be used as antifoulants, algaecide, disinfectants, pesticides, antibiotics, or hormones. All of these unregulated substances will be spewed into the water at thousands of liters per second. They will be carried by the tides up and down our shoreline. The tides, ebb and flood, run approximately 2 knots per hour in our area, which potentially could disperse this effluent as far as Port Maitland on the flood tide and Pubnico Point on the ebb tide. From that area, from Port Maitland to Pubnico Point, there's approximately 35 tank houses, which rely on the availability of pristine water to pump into their operations to keep lobsters in storage. However, some of these tank houses are less than a mile away from the outflow pipes of this proposed venture. The water will be tainted by the uncontrolled effluent, again leading to possible devastating results for the lobsters being held in these facilities and to our markets and our industry. This large area would have an incredible amount of lobster larvae in the water column during certain times of the year, especially in the summer and early fall. Egg-bearing females will be very prevalent in the shoaler waters along the shoreline, again, during this time frame. And lobsters in general will be in the shoaler water. They will be exposed to this effluent. As the larvae and lobsters ingest these toxins, the result can only be catastrophic for the lobster industry. The effects on the lobster population in these areas along the shore will be damaging. If a lobster is found or tested to have chemicals in its system, the consequences on our market will be crippling. This will devastate the economy of our rural coastal communities and the entire provincial economy and tax base as we know it. Just for a minute, I just want to expand on that, just to give you an example of how some people might think that a farm like this needs to destroy incredible amounts of lobster. It doesn't. You only need a handful of lobsters to be tested for this. And look, a prime example, I know it's got nothing to do with seafood, but if you hearken back to the late 90s, and maybe some of you guys are familiar with this, and ladies, I think the way they pronounce it is Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease or mad cow disease that devastated the beef industry across the world and in Canada. After that happened, there was an incredible cull of animals, and the industry had to basically start over, including in Canada. And they put new checks and balances in, new protocols and stuff like this. And the industry started to rebuild. And just for an example, in Alberta, all the protocols, the new protocols they had put in actually worked. In the early 2000s, they had detected a cow, an animal, in the pasture through testing. He hadn't even entered the food system, like into the slaughterhouse type thing. And once that one animal was tested, within 48 hours, Alberta had lost their markets in South Korea and all across that region. That's where the main focus of their beef industry was, within 48 hours. Now you project that ahead 20 something years to where we are now, and what social media can do with news of just one lobster or half a dozen lobsters maybe being tainted with chemicals. It's not good. I mean, the effect that we could have on this industry would be completely devastating. We don't have the option of getting this wrong once. Just to carry on, farm salmon, for example, is not permitted to be used as lobster bait due to chemicals found in the stomach and in the meat. Why would we consider pumping them same chemicals into our pristine ocean? The provincial and federal regulatory scheme is insufficient at this time to monitor the aquaculture industry. The regulations are more of a guideline, which leaves a lot of the monitoring and enforcement open for interpretation and are executed or carried out by the companies themselves. The penalties of non-compliance are minuscule. And as pointed out by several of the earlier speakers, you've seen what's happened. There is no oversight. Salmon farms operating outside of their lease areas for decades, nobody checking on this stuff. Again, it's kind of the fox watching the hen house here, and at least in this industry. This potential operation seems to offer very little in positive return and poses massive risk to existing industry. This is your impact statement. The type of operation that may be introduced into the area because of the proposed amendments to the MPS is not compatible with our prosperous and lucrative lobster fishery, the cornerstone of our community's economic survival. The idea of 30 to 40 jobs and some additional tax revenue will pale in comparison to the loss of our anchor industry. This cannot happen. The municipality might be open for business, but it must be the right business. You do not risk your community's economic viability. And thank you very much. It was a short presentation. I just had a very busy this time of year. I wish I could have put a PowerPoint together for you, but it just wasn't to be. Please, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Berry, and we'll entertain questions from the floor at this point. Councillor Pushing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Bernie, for your talk there. I agree with you. You cannot stress the importance of our lobster industry in Southwest Nova, and the chances that we have a multi-million-dollar business now. Why would we take a chance in trying to harm that for another multi-million-dollar business? But it certainly would not employ the people that are employed in the lobster industry as of yet, right? As there is now. So I think you come from you say you ran a lobster boat for 40 odd years, and I'm sure you've been tied with the fishery longer than that. So as far as I'm concerned, the fishermen in Southwest Nova are the experts on how to keep their livelihood going and have the economic impact that they do, not only in Southwest Nova Scotia, but across Nova Scotia. So, so that's very important. And I hate to see anything happen to that, so Well, thank you, Bernie, for your comments. And if I don't see you before you set your gear, good luck and be safe.
Okay, thanks, Lauren. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cushing. Additional questions from PAC members or staff?
That must have been a knockout blow, that presentation.
Yeah, no, we've got a couple, certainly. Ms. Durkee, Councillor Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Bernie. You've been in this industry for a long time, and we thank you for that. I'm just wondering if you have any information or statistics on the effects of the open pen farming in the Digby area and Grand Manan, if that's in that area, if that has had an effect on the fishing industry. And I know we're not looking at open pen, but I think that some of the products that come out of open pen could possibly be an effluent that goes back into the water in this situation. So I'm just wondering if you have any information on that.
Thank you for the question. No, not really. Just look, I mean, we all know those communities. Most of them, especially down up through the Digby area, are certainly. You've seen all the opposition to these open pen farms. One thing I'd like to bring to light is, I mean, I think it was Cook's Aquaculture, and I'm not sure the year, maybe 10 years ago in Grand Manan. I mean, there were. Now, again, things could change. We got very lucky at the time. They were convicted of a small, dispersal of affluent that actually killed a small number of lobsters. Luckily, again, I go back to 10, 12 years ago. Social media isn't what it is today. If something like that had happened today, again, it doesn't mean, it doesn't have to have a huge die-off anywhere. Pertaining to anything, any kind of product, including lobster, that you can have such a negative impact. You will be years, if not decades, rebuilding what you have now as far as markets and trust, especially in your consumer, because it will simply turn to another protein. And this is where we got to be careful. I said earlier, we only have to get this wrong once and it's over. We don't get to have a lot of redos here. If something goes wrong and God forbid there's like I said, a lobster somehow is tested, maybe not even on our side, but there's a random test done in Europe or China or even in the States, and something comes back amok, not going to be good. Once the genie's out of the bottle, you're not putting it back in. And we believe as an industry that we are playing with fire here. We don't get to make, especially in today's world, the consumer is driving this. They want pristine product. They want stuff they know is not tainted with chemicals or anything like this. And this is one of the reasons seafood is at such a high premium now, especially after COVID and that event. Look, the price of any seafood is skyrocketed. People want the best of the best for their families, and we must deliver that. We cannot play around with the possibility of tainting our fishery. I mean, again, it just wouldn't affect Southwest Nova. If this, I mean, you're talking now in Atlantic Canada, it looks like some of the experts are looking at this year over $3 billion worth. The lobster fishery is going to become by the end of December. Now, this is taken into account Newfoundland, the Gaspé, and PEI. It doesn't matter where the incident happens. If that incident happens here or in Richibucto, New Brunswick, or whatever, it's going to take the whole industry down. And I'm not sure how coastal Atlantic Canada rebuilds if you ever lost that linchpin. Totally agree with you. You got to diversify. Absolutely. I'm not sure this is the answer, or this type of industry is the answer when you could put your main breadwinner, if I could put it that way, possibly at risk. That's a roll of the dice.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your response and appreciate you being here.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Hilton,
Mm,
next question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, you know, I'm listening to you, Bernie, and I'm thinking of what's going on in PEI right now with the two farms and the potato warts and the fact that they've been banned all PEI lobsters from the United States, and what that would do if something like that happened here. Just, do you know what percentage of lobsters are exported from Southwest Nova Scotia out of even out of Nova Scotia or Canada or worldwide?
Yeah, well, I think that our live market, I think it's, if I can, I think it's somewhere in the range of still 60% goes to the US live, and I think it's 55 and 30% to China now and 15% to Europe. There is some outlying countries like there's Hong Kong, Taiwan, Vietnam actually buying product. Some of the Middle East countries are starting to buy lobsters, certainly at a lesser volume, but you're starting to break into that. But that's the three main markets. And actually, China, I mean, for example, even after the pandemic and stuff like this, 5 years ago, China was actually, well, yeah, they were below Europe. They were only at 10 or 15%. China is exploding and continues to explode for as far as the size of market and the money that they'll actually pay for the product.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll turn the floor over to Mr. Camo.
Thank you. Bernie, you mentioned the increase in value of the fisheries, not only for area, but for Nova Scotia and Maritimes in total. I recognize that the price has gone up substantially over the last 2 or 3 years. Do you have any statistics on the catch sizes, whether or not they're going up or down or staying stagnant? Or
No, well, actually, thank you for the question. The Canadian catch is staying roughly the same. The entire Canadian catch comes in around 160 million pounds. The only change has been west of Halifax to the main border has decreased somewhat in catches, but the Gulf in them areas and northern and especially in the Gaspé and Newfoundland, the catches have picked up. So the catches have shifted a little bit, but the overall Canadian catch still comes in around 160 to 165 million pounds, which is just over, yeah, I think it's around 60% of all the landings of lobster in North America.
so for our areas, it's staying, it's
Yeah.
stagnant, or
Actually, LFA 34, the last 2 years, 45 million pounds has been harvested each of the last 2 years. We did have some other bigger years, but we've kind of flatlined at 45 million. Some of the surrounding LFAs, for example, LFA 33 just to the east of us, which is from Back Road Halifax, somewhere around 8 million pounds, and LFA 35, which is on the eastern side of the Bay of Fundy, 7 million pounds.
thank you.
Are there additional questions? Okay. So I'm not seeing any. And again, Mr. Barry, excellent presentation, and the numbers are very, very large for the value of the commercial lobster fishery for sure. And the lobster is definitely very popular all over the world, and that's good news for us in our markets and our local economy. So I want to thank you on behalf of the PAC for coming in and sharing your time with us. And I'd like to wish you a very successful lobster season, safe lobster season, as well as all the other fishers in LFA 34. So thanks so much.
Okay, and thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity. Have a good
Okay,
evening.
thank you.
Yep.
So we're going to we'll be adjourning the meeting, but next meeting I'll look to our CAO. What's the next date, Madam CAO? I just don't have my calendar in front of me.
Yeah, so I think you're working with the clerk now. The third Tuesday in December is Christmas week. So I think we're pulling it ahead a week, are we not, Jenny?
Yep, it will be December 14th, and I will get the notice out to you all soon.
Perfect. So we'll have an agenda ready, and any parting comments, any additional comments? We had an excellent series of presenters today, and thank you all for asking probing questions. That's what learning is all about. And we'll digest this, both the PAC and staff, and we'll be looking at moving forward, with additional agenda items on the 14th, and we'll circulate that in the near term. So any further comments before I look for a mover to adjourn? Okay, do I have a mover to adjourn? Nick Hilton, Councillor Hilton, seconded by Councillor Lauren Cushing. All those in favor? Those opposed? Okay, thanks, everybody. It was a long, but I think productive day. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thanks. Good night.
Thank you.